very painful to realize that we are imperfect, and we kind of have a lot of short points. But it's also a way to improve our Sheng. Do you agree? Yes. But sometimes I feel very depressed that after a long time I realize I'm doing something wrong, but I kind of still repeat that mistake again and again. So I don't know if you have a better way based on your experience how to deal with this kind of depressed feeling and how to better or maybe do things in a more positive way.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Yes, we're saying that, the sense of unworthiness, there may be some people when they see imperfections that they want to strive to improve themselves and do better, which is really good. But if you do it with if your intention is healthy, then it is enabling you to improve yourself in a very positive way. And the outcome as when you're improving yourself is that you wouldn't be your inner critique where you're judging yourself and say, that's not good enough. You'll think every step you make is great. But if your motivation for improving yourself is because of what you think because you're unworthy, then that is a different thing. The outcome is very different. Just like I was sharing that plane ride, the turbulence. One was preparing to die. The other one is thinking it's fun. So it's the same concept too. So when you're improving yourself because it's fun, it is discovering your potential, then every step you do, every success you make, you're very excited about it as you're discovering it. But if you're doing it for the reason that you're actually preparing to fail, how can you be happy even when you're trying to improve yourself? The more you do it, the more you keep measuring yourself. You keep judging yourself and saying, they're not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'll share with you one thing. There was a research, an experiment that was done. Which country produces or trains the fastest runners in the world? Where? Jamaica. Okay. Well, everyone's like Jamaica. Okay. But when they were doing this experiment during that time, they said it was Ethiopia. So what this researcher did was he went to observe a few different coaches as they were coaching their runners. And what the coaches would do is they would film the runners. And from beginning to the end of their run. And how they would train their runners is they would replay this video to their runners. And he noticed that, for most of the coaches, they'll say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this is wrong. But one coach stood out amongst all these coaches. He was replaying the video like everyone does to his runner, and he says, this is right, this is right, this is right, and this is right. How do you excel? You can't excel based on your weaknesses. You can only excel based on your strengths. So can you see it's a case of different perspectives of how you look at it. You have to be confident and know what your strengths are. And then from the strength, continue to develop that. And you will excel. But if you keep focusing only on the weaknesses and you obsess over it, then what happens is you will paralyze yourself with all these incessant worries and all this incessant judging. And that is not healthy. So try to turn it around into something positive and say, hey, I'm learning something good. I'll share with you another example too of my own journey. When I did that exercise, I realized that the two values that I cherish most in my life that I wanted to fulfill is service and equanimity. What is the opposite of service? What is the opposite of service? Pardon me? I couldn't hear. Someone said something else?
Indifference.
Indifference, okay. The opposite of service could be indifference, but it is also selfishness. One is giving, the other is receiving. And equanimity is being in harmony, in peace, shared justice. Everyone gets the same thing. And in the process of doing this, as I'm doing this and I was continuing through my life and serving and trying to be harmonious and be at peace and trying to be, unjudgmental, I discovered a lot of levels as I was doing it that, even when I was doing this service, I was being selfish. There's still selfish elements in there. And there's still judgmental elements in there. Right? So I choose to, at one point in time, I just want to do workshops with young people in conflict areas. I didn't really think much about young people, in developed countries because they've got everything. And you've got these young people who are living in an environment that is terrible, and I feel for them. But that is the highest form of service and equanimity versus what I'm doing at that point in time is not the same thing. Because I was discriminating, and I was choosing to be selfish in my service to only this group of people. So as I was doing this, out of this whole process, as you're discovering it, what do? You feel, oh my gosh, I'm a hopeless case. As I discover this, do I think of it this way? I'm hopeless. I'm trying to, practice service and equanimity, and oh gosh, even when I'm doing that, I'm still selfish and I'm still judgmental. If I think about this way, it's easy for me to become depressed and I give up. But if you change that thought process around and you say, oh hey, so here's another element. I discovered, so this is, as I'm doing this, this part here is still selfish, and this part here is still judgmental. Great, so now I know. So next time when I serve, then I expanded my thing. Instead of saying, I only wanted to help young people in conflict areas, now I help young people wherever my causes and conditions brings me to. Right? And then at one point in time, I realized, wait a minute, I'm still selfish and judgmental because I'm choosing young people. Right? And then I'm going, oh, hey, and then I don't go, you are a hopeless failure. I don't think about it that way. And I go, oh, okay. So I expand again and go, I'll help whoever comes in my path. Right? So when you do it that way, it is very different. And that's why we're saying too, you don't know what light is unless you know what dark is. You don't know what is white unless you know what is black. So I don't know what is service and equanimity until I understand what are not. So it's a process. That's why we say the spiritual process of your own practice is exactly the same thing. As you discover your own fears and your own pain, and you get in touch with your suffering, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes in the process of doing this, it can overwhelm you, and you go, oh my goodness, who am I? But like we were saying before too, if you identify your core of who you are with this wanting and the fears, but that's not who you are. I just asked you that question, when I say Buddha, what comes to mind? And these are all the qualities of who we are too. And we forgot about all those things. And we just focus only on those small things. So that's not what it is we open ourselves through our journey to see a bigger and bigger and bigger picture until one day you will accomplish the most perfect form of whatever you achieve, whatever you're striving to accomplish. Okay? Thanks. Right. Another question?
I think our IT Captain JT.
Don't ask me IT questions. I'm a Luddite.
I was going to ask a question similar to the previous question. So in your talk, you talk about the freedom is accepting being imperfect, accepting the thing it is. But I'm wondering that, so what is the balance of is accepting the imperfect and the encouragement itself to get better? I totally agree that from the last question you talk about like the positive encouragement or the negative encouragement, but sometimes people just it's easy to get lazy, to get idleness or get ease, and they are very satisfied with what they are right now. They lack of the encouragement to get better. For example, like as the age get older and older, we become fatter and fatter. So So do we just accept that that's the things as it is, as the age get older, so I'm getting fatter, or do I push myself to go to the gym to do all the exercise? It's not that fun to do all the weightlifting, but do we have to push ourselves to improve ourselves? It's better for our health, it's better for our body, but do we have to accept that, or we have to encourage ourselves to do the things we don't really enjoy, but we have to do them?
Well, you know, like all these questions that you're asking are really good questions. They're very important questions. That's what I was hoping when we designed this weekend program, was to do one which I just give setting the context. What I've done right now is just setting the context. And I was hoping to do the workshops afterwards, in which you know, we would be able to apply it more directly. So the question that you were asking is that sometimes you say, where do you find the balance between, you know, just accepting things as and pushing yourself, even if you're not enjoying it. But if you know what is your value in life, if you know how to language it, that you would never be in this dilemma in the first place, because you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing it. So let's say you raise the example, as we're growing older, we accept the fact that our body changes. We cannot maintain, you know, the physique of our body as when we were in our teens. You can't attempt to try to fit yourself back into the jeans that you could wear when you were in your teens, right? You accept that that's the fact, but you don't have to kind of judge yourself in that way and say, I go to the gym because I wanted to have a healthy life. So if you're going to the gym and you're just keeping yourself healthy, that's fine. You don't have to have, like, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger's physique. Or for the ladies, I don't know who is the most, what, Lady Gaga or something? Sorry, I'm kind of really out of this whole thing. And you know, you don't have to maintain those, because those are just an outside thing in which you feel you're not good enough and you're trying to measure to that. You're trying to kind of you're trying to narrow that gap. You don't have to do it. You're doing it because you want to feel healthy. You're doing it because you want to feel better. If you look at it that way, where you're not trying to narrow a gap between an ideal you're hoping for versus where you are right now, then it's not a chore. It becomes something that you enjoy because you know you're just keeping yourself healthy. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I agree with that. But I think the problem is we are too good to ourselves. Sometimes we just say, well, I'm improving right now, but actually it's not good enough. I think the idea to being a little bit negative is to just push ourselves to a higher level.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so all right, thank you for clarifying. In that sense, is that we're not saying that we're not good enough, because sometimes languaging, how we language the feelings that we have or our thoughts really affect how we're going to react, and it affects our perception too. But looking at this and saying, hey, where's the next step? What is the next step? What that process is that the whole process of saying, okay, so as I'm discovering throughout my whole process of service and equanimity, I don't go, okay, I just help young people in conflict areas and that's good enough. And I won't say that that's not good enough, I need to help more people. Instead, for me, is as I'm doing this, I discover all that elements that I am not. And I continue to transcend them, to transcend them, and to transcend them. So in that sense, you will always continuing to improve yourself. What we would say in this process, some people would say is, I would be showing this film actually during the young people's workshop, is what I call everyday creativity. And what it means is this mentality is that you're able to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Every single time, everything you do, you're always able to look from a different perspective and see the extraordinary thing. And then you strive for it. You sit there and you try to find that extraordinary moment again. And you keep doing it. And then you will always improve. But instead of saying that's not good enough, but what else is there to see? So a different perspective, but it still motivates you to move forward. But it's based on something that is healthy rather than something that actually will cripple you in